Hello, hello, hello. This is Danny Ceballos with Unleashed Consulting and the Best Boss Bootcamp podcast. Welcome, 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 welcome our amazing guest that I'm just so excited to get into it with her. This is Kimra Luna. Kimra, just say hi so everybody can hear your voice.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Kimra. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kimra, and then we're going to get into some Q&A. I will tell you that I have known Kimra for a number of years now. Been following her and the work that she's done, both as a business developer, but more importantly for me, and why I've been fanboying in the background for so many years, is following Kimra in her personal activism, her personal, not only the activism in the political sense, but the activism in just taking charge of one's life, moving forward, despite obstacles, being fully authentic, all of that. So I hope we're going to get into all of that in the short time that we have together. So let me tell you a little bit about Kimra, and then we'll get into some conversation. So Kimra Luna is a personal branding and online business strategist and social activist. Kimra is the founder of the Riot Doll Society community on Discord and is the host of the Riot Doll Show on YouTube. Kimra is the co-conspirator to Idaho Abortion Rights, a mutual aid organization that supports abortion-seeking Idahoans, funds transportation and child care during their abortion procedures. Their community and channel cover topics on online business, self-healing, sex, love, relationships, music, sensuality, self-love, psychology, and activism. Kimra has been featured in Forbes, Inc. magazine, and the New York Times, and has been interviewed on over 100 podcasts. Kimra is a queer punk Mexican single mama to 3 boys and spends their free time going to punk shows and making vegan food for their family and friends. You can find their work at kimraluna.com. Of course, we'll put that in the show notes. And by the way, Kimra's pronoun is they and them. So welcome, Kimra. So excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here today.
Yeah, Kimra. So can you start off maybe just telling us a little bit about really about the conversation that we had just prior to our coming on the air here. So Kimra is in Idaho. We have just gone through election day here. And Kimra, how are you feeling about election day in Idaho?
Yeah, it was a little rough. We did a lot of work, particularly in my group, Idaho Abortion Rights. We had actually created a Vote Pro-Choice Idaho guide, which supported people in knowing exactly who to vote for, because in Idaho, it's actually really difficult to know who to vote for because a lot of the politicians some of them don't even have websites. Like some of them don't have any social media presence. So it can be often hard to do that. So myself and a few others from our collective, interviewed different politicians, built relationships with them to see like what their goals were on helping Idaho get our reproductive rights back. There was a 6-week ban that went that was signed this past March, and that was something that kind of spiraled and started creating Idaho abortion rights. I had already been supporting people with abortion access for a few years, but then once the bans went into effect, and then there was the Supreme Court leak that happened, things just kind of started growing really rapidly. And one of the things that was really interesting here in Idaho is because we have all these bans and laws, we were really hoping that the attorney general election would have went our way, but it has not. So now there's a lot of fear about people becoming prosecuted for having an abortion. There's a lot of stories now that because people reach out to us and tell us stories about them having to go out of state because they went into early labor and things like that. And so, there's a lot of fear around what happened with the elections. It did not go our way at all. And we had a lot of new first time voters. And I know that our community made a pretty big impact, but Idaho definitely still has many years of work to do to help us get those rights back.
It has been a bit of a Shiite show across the U.S. in a lot of ways. In some ways, we didn't see the red tide that everybody was saying was going to happen. So I guess that's the slight silver lining. But Kimra, I want to talk to you a little bit. There's so much more to your story, your background. Can you maybe kind of give us an encapsulate what brought you to this point? Because when I met you, you were a brand activist. You were a business development activist. And I knew your politics and your social, kind of just from your bios. But What did the pivot happen? Because all of a sudden I see you're getting arrested. We're talking about how everything that you're doing in terms of your activism may be considered a felony now in Idaho. So this was a pretty big leap. And I know you're good with the leaps. I've seen you leap a few times. But
Yeah.
what brought you to this point? What was the pivot?
I think the main thing was 4 years ago, I had went to a retreat. It was actually the first retreat that I had ever been to. And there was a tobacco ceremony that we went through at this retreat. And in that, there were grandmothers who came to me from all over the world. Like I was just kind of like in this, like euphoric sort of state. And then all these grandmothers came to me from all around the world. They were all speaking different languages. And what they were telling me is that I am a person who is put here to help people heal their wombs. And that was kind of like when it first clicked. Like after I came out of that state, my immediate reaction was like, I want to help people with abortions. And I wanted to become what would be called like an abortion doula sort of thing. Some people call them abortion companions. I'm actually now a certified abortion companion, but it was something that came to me, and I was still doing, all of my business coaching work and teaching marketing and those sorts of things. And so when I moved to Idaho, so I'm actually born and raised in Idaho, but I lived in all different states. I lived in California, I lived in Seattle, I've lived, in Virginia, I lived in New York, I've lived in New Jersey. So I lived in a lot of places. And then I moved back to Idaho, which was, my home base. It's, where I was born and raised. And when I moved back, I started seeing the need of people being able to get help to, have their abortion. And so I started kind of just doing that on the down low, incognito sort of thing, where I would just like make a post on Facebook and say, hey, like my friend needs some money to get an abortion. It's $350. And people would just Venmo me money. And then I would give it to the person so they could go and have an abortion. And so I was just doing that kind of just on the side of things. And then, once like the laws went into effect here in Idaho, once our governor like signed the bills to do the 6-week abortion ban, things just started escalating from there. And I started going out and protesting. And yes, I was arrested on May 14th of this past year, protesting. It was 11 days after the leak from the Supreme Court, and the case was dismissed. It was wrongful arrest. I actually wasn't doing anything wrong. I was protesting in a public space. So, and I'm actually now just put in my tort claim to sue the city for wrongful arrest,
Nice.
because they harass activists quite often here in Idaho, and Idaho is only growing bigger. The population is getting bigger, and the police force here doesn't seem to realize that we're not trying to do anything wrong. We're just trying to use our voices. And yeah, so it did just continue to like escalate. But after the arrest, it was really hard for me to go out and speak publicly, which I've been a public speaker for like 10 years. And so that arrest really jarred me. It was very traumatizing. My children were there as well, which I was trying to, bring, because I mean, kids have been to rallies and protests and things before when we lived in New York City, actually several times. And, I was wanting to bring them to an empowering event to show them to stand up for what they believe in. And, it ended up becoming a traumatizing experience for a whole family. However, I do feel that it was meant to happen in a way,
Mhm.
because it brought attention onto what we were doing here in the state of Idaho. There were stories that started making like national news here, and that brought attention into the issue that, even before the bans, over 30% of Idaho is in rural areas. They don't even have access to birth control. There's no clinics where people can get birth control. I have people calling me from all over the state who are like, do you know where I can get birth control? And I'm
Mm.
having to teach them how to go online and get birth control prescribed by doctors online, because they literally don't have anywhere to even get access. So, my work isn't just abortion work. It's also everything about reproductive health and reproductive rights and access, so that people can make decisions for themselves and, have autonomy over not only just their body, but their lives as well.
That's awesome. I mean, horrible and awesome at the same time. And Kimra, can you, by any chance, is there, one of the reasons that I wanted to connect with you was because I saw the video of you being arrested, and it's traumatizing for with a small t just to watch it because you were
Mhm.
not doing anything that was violent or in any way. It was just speaking up and then being pulled aside. Where can people see that video if they want to see it?
Well, my Instagram, I think it's on my personal Instagram now, which is just my name, Kimra Luna. We also have an Idaho abortion rights Instagram page, but it keeps being like shadow banned, so people can't really find it right now. So my personal Instagram is actually the best way to see like what I'm up to, because for some reason they don't, shadow ban on that page, but they do on our page, Idaho abortion rights. I think because it has the word abortion in the name, I guess.
I see.
But yeah, so we will see what happens with that. But anyways, yeah, you can check it out there. We didn't like post it on YouTube or anything like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it might be somewhere on Reddit. Like, I don't know, like the video has been passed around quite a bit. But I'm sure more people will be seeing it now that we are moving forward with suing the city for wrongful arrest.
So interesting. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Going to do a hard left here now and talk about what this podcast promises, which is to give insights, strategies, and practices for how to manage one's position and role when one is a manager or a leader at an organization. The reason and how I want to do that is, as you were thinking, I was thinking, this very podcast very likely will lose me some listeners, right? It's just the nature of the beast. I know when you decided to do this work that you, based on some of the emails that I've received from you, you lost some of your followers, some of your followers.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if we can kind of pull that apart a little bit. When one is in an organization, one is needs to be politically savvy to the extent that they need to keep their job and stay on
Mm-hmm.
their path of development. Let's see if between you and I, we can figure out some good pieces of advice or strategies for folks that feel this, that they want to speak out and that they know that their organization, in the smallest way or the biggest way possible, will not support that speaking out. So, what does one do? What do you think one does when one feels really strongly and passionately about a social cause issue, about identity, about any of those things, and they're in a place where they are, in some ways, being tamped down? What do you
I
think?
think the biggest thing is knowing your personal values, like knowing what you actually care about and then behaving in a way that isn't aligned with those values. So each individual has their own values, right? A company might have its own values, like what the company's mission is or what they're about. But if you are working in a company and you are in a management position, or, there's people that you work with, if you focus on living your values as you are at work and the decisions you make are aligned with your values, that is activism. I think a
Okay.
lot of people don't realize how much activism work we can do in our daily lives, standing up for a person that's, an employee that maybe, they were wronged in some sort of way at work, reaching out to people, checking in on people, even, like making sure people are okay is part of activism. And I think people often think of activism as like, being in the streets and doing a bunch of speeches and things like that, which in some situations people can't do. I mean, here in Idaho, most of the bans are targeted towards healthcare workers, and a lot of them cannot speak up publicly. But
Mm.
what they can do is have compassionate care when they're caring for people. They can have compassion towards the fellow employees that they're working with. And so it's really just thinking about those little things that you can do that make the big difference. Maybe there's something at your work where maybe, people are, misgendering a person all the time, and, maybe pull a person aside and say, hey, just so you know, that's those person's pronouns. And I feel like it would be more respectful to them if you use their pronouns, right? Anything like that is very simple things that I feel a boss or manager can do to support a person that is on the workforce. If someone's like, pregnant or something like that, like advocate for them to be able to sit on a chair. Like that's a big deal. There's a lot of pregnant people who work in jobs and they're on their feet all day, and they need advocates inside the workplace to say, hey, like this person may need an extra break, and advocate for those people when you see someone that might be going through something, and especially if you are a manager, you can actually help make those decisions. You can help and say like, hey, like how about we make a part of the policy change where, if someone has XYZ, they are able to take more breaks, or they are able to, sit in a chair to do some of their work rather than standing the entire time.
Yeah.
Those are just small things that people can do to really be an advocate for others in the workplace. And it's something that I hope to see more of in the future. I think a lot of people are starting to do it naturally, but again, this boils down to what your values are. If you have a core value of being a compassionate person, then take that into the workplace and say like, hey, what can I do today that would be a compassionate act?
Wow. I almost want to I don't know what I want to do with that. I want to put it on a t-shirt or something like that. I love this is about, so I was thinking, oh, she's talking about quiet activism. You're not talking about quiet activism. You're talking about speaking your truth in a way that works within the confines of the organization and I actually feel like that's like the most strategic activism that's out there, right? There's the
Mm-hmm.
activism that really moves the needle. I think a lot about, during the AIDS crisis, and people talk about, well, finally got the drugs that work for folks with AIDS. Well, no, it's because we were doing die-ins in the street because we were in their face. But there were a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in the background just having these conversations. And that's what the kind of activism, right? So it's not, I love that. It's not one way or the other. And I think that's really important for our listeners to
And
hear.
honestly, we need more of the people that are doing the behind the
Yes,
scenes stuff.
yes,
The people
yes.
who are on the front lines like me, I am able to do that because we have behind the scenes people who are doing things, because some people, because of their job or their workplace, or they're in school, like some of them are in school and they're like, well, I can't be publicly vocal because like what if my professor is going to give me a bad grade because they see that I'm being publicly vocal, right? And so they have certain, everybody's situations are different, and so they do activism in different ways. They call up businesses and ask them, hey, can we put pamphlets at your shop, at your establishment, that have information about where people can get an abortion? That alone is something that we need help with. There's a lot of businesses. I can't sit around and call every single business all day long, but there's people that can do those things behind the scenes to help our cause. And then, of course, if someone, wants to get involved in different, activism groups, I mean, a lot of times they do need people that have management skills. They do
Mm,
need people that can do project managing. They do need people that can help get them organized or even learn tools. Like there's a lot of mutual aids around here in Idaho, and some of them aren't super as tech savvy. And so they've actually asked me to go and help them like learn, like, hey, can you do like a boot camp on how to use Google Docs and Google Drive and things like that, because people in the org just didn't know how to do that. And so sometimes you might have a skill that you can actually lend to people who are already doing the activism work. So maybe there are some nonprofits or mutual aids, and you have a skill like you're really good at spreadsheets. Well, guess what? A lot of these people in these mutual aids are not good in spreadsheets. Like we are the artist types, like we're the creatives. And so sometimes we're not really good at those things, but we do need to be more organized in the back end. So if someone has really good organization skills, or you're a project manager, those are awesome people to start working with nonprofits, even if it's just on the side or 5 hours a week. Like you can use the skills you've learned in your workplace, especially if you are a manager, you have organizational skills. If you're a manager in nonprofits and mutual aids, they need that type of support. It's something where, like, there was one woman who joined our collective, and she is like a master secretary. Like she takes all the notes, makes everything all organized, makes all the spreadsheets. I'm like, yes, thank you. I'm so glad that you are helping us, because I am a big, huge mess, and my desk is just like 100 sticky notes, type of thing. So we need people that have organizational skills, and you can lend a hand in different organizations and help with those sorts of things.
yeah, I love that. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be about carrying a sign and being arrested. It can be about, yeah, helping to organize the infrastructure for what the social movement. Yeah, I love that. And we can do that.
Exactly. And because the collectives are often just a bunch of people getting together who are passionate about something, but sometimes we need more organizational skills. Like I'm
Mhm.
pretty lucky that, I've ran businesses for so long that I do have quite a lot of organizational skills. But when I'm busy out in the streets doing stuff and busy directly helping and serving my community, I also just don't have time to do those things. Like I can be organized and do all the spreadsheets and stuff, but I just don't have the time. I don't have the mental capacity even to do it because I'm in the front lines working as an abortion companion, supporting people through very difficult decisions that they're making. And so, I'm already exhausted from that. And so we need people that are behind us who are working to keep things organized and to make sure that there's a good flow so that we can serve more people and serve our community.
Right on, right on. Well, my fanboying continues to grow for you, Kimra. And before we let you go, I'm wondering, can you look, maybe you can, maybe you can't, look into your crystal ball. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think
Um,
where do you,
I mean, I'm hoping by then I'll do a TED Talk. I haven't done one of those yet. So
okay?
I'm not very good at memorizing though, so I might not be so good at it. But I would love to be able to do a TED Talk. I definitely want to have a very large following on my Twitch and my YouTube channels, doing more political commentary, more leftist, I guess, commentary and content. A lot of stuff about capitalism and things because we're all kind of like capitalist because we live in capitalism, so we kind of participate in it even though we might not necessarily want to, and like how to navigate that. I feel like my YouTube and my Twitch are kind of the main things that I would love to see grow and flourish and thrive. And I don't know where I'll be living because a lot of this depends on the laws and things.
Yeah,
So
right.
I don't know where I'll be living, but maybe something warmer than Idaho because it was election day the other day and then it snowed first thing in the morning and I was like, who the heck voted for snow? Like why are you voting for snow already? Like what is going on? Normally the snow doesn't even happen until like January, right? So and it's only the beginning of November. So so hopefully somewhere maybe a little bit warmer in 5 years.
Yeah, I hear you. As a recent transplant from California back to my hometown of Binghamton, New York, in upstate New York. Yeah, no snow yet, but it's right around the corner. Kimra, thank you so much. I want to encourage my listeners to really take a look, see where you can find Kimra. She's on all kinds of social media platforms, but you hear her loud and clear. She's on Insta, and she's looking to really build her following on Twitch and what was the other?
YouTube.
On YouTube. So make
Yeah,
sure that
and it's just my name on all of them, Kimra Luna.
yes, you can't miss that name. Kimra, thank you so much. We'll continue to follow you. I hope to have you back for a follow-up in a few months. Good luck with everything. And thank you on behalf of the community writ large, right? Those of us that are on trying very hard to stay on the front lines around activism, especially around women's health care and abortion access. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kimra, take care, everybody. Thank you, dear listener. This is Danny Ceballos with Unleashed Consulting and the Best Boss Bootcamp podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye now.